My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 37 years old. This happened 6 months ago, and I'm still processing the fallout. Some nights I wake up thinking about how close I came to swallowing my anger, signing my life away, and staying quiet like they expected me to. Other nights I remember what happened next, and I sleep just fine. I worked at Apex Solutions for 9 years. If you asked anyone on the executive floor who I was, they'd probably say something like, "She's in IT, keeps the systems running." If you asked the interns, they'd say, "That's the woman you go to when everything's on fire." Both were true. Only one of those answers mattered. I started at Apex at 28, fresh out of the University of Washington with a computer science degree, and $73,000 in student loans pressing down on my chest like a second rib cage. Apex offered me $52,000 a year. It felt unreal, like I'd finally been led into a room I'd been knocking on my whole life. Back then, Apex was small, 80-something employees, a converted warehouse in Seattle's industrial district, the kind of place where the CEO knew your name and brought his own grill to company picnics. We weren't glamorous, but we were hungry. My apartment was a shoebox in Fremont. 3 roommates. One bathroom that permanently smelled like mildew no matter how much bleach we used. I slept on a mattress I found on Craigslist and told myself it was temporary. The work was basic at first. Database upkeep, password resets, emergency fixes when the system inevitably collapsed for the 3rd time that week. Our entire operation ran on an ancient platform called Data Core Legacy, a Frankenstein monster stitched together from outdated code and blind hope. It crashed constantly, lost data randomly, required manual reboots that took hours. 6 people existed solely to keep it alive. I learned that system the way you learn a bad relationship. Every flaw, every trigger, every workaround. I learned how to explain to furious department heads why their reports vanished into nothing. I learned how to stay calm when executives yelled like I'd personally deleted their bonuses. What no one noticed was how much I was absorbing. 5 years in, we lost a client worth over $4 million a year because DataCore corrupted 3 months of their project data. Gone. Unrecoverable. The CTO called an emergency meeting. Consultants were brought in. Proposals came back in the tens of millions with timelines measured in years. The board rejected all of them. Too expensive, too risky, too slow. That was the moment something in me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically. Quietly, permanently. Around that time, I was living with my boyfriend Daniel. He worked in logistics, long hours, unpredictable shifts. He'd come home exhausted and find me still at my desk screens, glowing fingers flying. "You work all day," he said once, leaning in the doorway. "Then you come home and do the same thing." "It's different," I told him. "This one's mine." He didn't understand. Not fully. And maybe I didn't explain it well. I just knew that something inside me had decided I wasn't going to let a broken system keep dictating my life or my worth. So when Daniel went to sleep, I stayed up. I built something new in the quiet hours when no one was watching. And I made sure it belonged only to me. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. Not at work. Not my friends. Not even Daniel, not really. He knew I was coding, but he didn't know what I was building or how deep it had already taken hold of me. Every night followed the same pattern. Daniel would leave for his late shift or fall asleep early, and I'd sit down at my desk, nothing fancy, just a custom-built desktop, 3 mismatched monitors I'd bought on Black Friday sales, and a chair that started hurting my back after month 3. I told myself I'd stop at midnight. I never did. I taught myself new languages because the ones I knew weren't enough. Learned frameworks I'd never touched before. Watched tutorial after tutorial until my eyes burned and the sun came up. Weekends stopped existing. Vacation days turned into uninterrupted coding marathons. I spent money I didn't have on server time development tools and licenses because I refused to cut corners. That was the first rule I set for myself. If I was going to do this, it had to be done right. Daniel started noticing the changes before I did. The way I answered him without really hearing. The way meals went cold while I chased a bug that almost made sense. The way my mind was always somewhere else. "You're not here," he said one night, standing in the kitchen with his arms crossed. "You're just physically present." "I'm doing this for our future," I said. And even as the words left my mouth, I wasn't sure if I believed them. 14 months in, he found me at my desk at 11 on a Saturday night. I hadn't showered in 2 days. Energy drink cans and empty takeout boxes were stacked like monuments around me. "I can't do this anymore, Evelyn," he said quietly. "You're obsessed." He wasn't wrong. But obsession was the only thing keeping me going. When he left, the apartment felt hollow, but also quieter. I told myself it was temporary grief, a necessary cost. I buried it under more code, more refinement, more testing. 18 months after I started at exactly 4:17 a.m., the beta version compiled without errors. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen. It wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. It was adaptive, scalable, intuitive, everything data core wasn't. I tested it against real company data. It processed 73% faster. 0 errors. Not one. I slept for 14 hours straight. When I finally showed it to Ron, the CTO, his reaction told me everything. "Evelyn," he said, voice barely above a whisper. This is exactly what we need." I nodded. "I know." I told him I could have it fully implemented in 6 weeks. His eyes widened. Consultants had promised years. The executive demo happened the next day. I walked into the conference room with my laptop and a calm I didn't feel. I showed them speed, integrity, scalability. I answered questions before they finished asking them. Then the CFO asked the one that mattered. "How much will this cost us?" "I'll license it to the company," I said. "Reasonable terms." Silence. "This isn't company property," someone asked. "No," I replied evenly. "I built it entirely on my own time, using my own equipment and resources." I slid the documentation across the table, the same paperwork a lawyer friend had helped me prepare months earlier. I watched their faces change as they read. Finally, the CEO leaned back. "What are your terms?" I told them. $50,000 a year, adjusted for inflation, full ownership retained by me. They agreed without hesitation. What they didn't notice, what they didn't take seriously, was the clause buried inside the agreement, the one tied to my employment and compensation. My insurance policy. Implementation took 5 weeks and 3 days. When we shut DataCore down, nothing broke. No crashes, no frantic calls, just quiet efficiency. People didn't know what to do with that kind of calm. And neither did the company. Because while my system changed everything, the way they saw me didn't change at all. Monday morning, after the migration, the building felt different. Not louder, not more excited, quieter, cautious, like everyone was waiting for the other shoe to drop. It never did. The help desk tickets slowed to a trickle. Systems stayed up. Reports generated on time. Data stopped disappearing into thin air. Departments that used to fight over server resources suddenly stopped arguing because there was nothing to fight about anymore. Within 6 months, the numbers spoke for themselves. Apex started taking contracts we'd been turning down for years. Complex logistics projects, high-volume manufacturing clients, engineering firms that needed clean, reliable data across multiple sites. My platform handled it all without flinching. Revenue nearly doubled in the first year. The company grew fast. Too fast. New hires every month, new departments, new floors. The old warehouse got replaced with a polished glass building in South Lake Union that smelled like fresh paint and ambition. I got promoted to senior infrastructure architect. My salary climbed to $94,000. There was a small bonus and a plaque that said Innovation Excellence. I hung the plaque in my office and tried not to think about the $38,000 of my own money I'd sunk into building the system that made all of this possible. For 4 years, everything ran smoothly. The company grew from 80 employees to over 400. Offices opened in Portland and Austin. Clients came in faster than sales could keep up with. Executives congratulated themselves in quarterly meetings. Board members smiled at graphs trending upward. And I kept the engine running. What I didn't have was power. Decisions about staffing budgets and strategy happened in rooms I wasn't invited into. When infrastructure was discussed, I was consulted, but only after choices had already been made. My system was treated like a utility, always on, always expected, rarely acknowledged. Daniel's name faded into the past. We never reconciled. He sent one message a year later, something polite, distant. I replied once. After that, I focused on work. Then in December, the CEO announced his retirement. There was applause, speeches, gratitude, and beneath it all, a quiet unease I couldn't explain. "We're looking for someone dynamic," the board said, "a visionary who can take Apex to the next level." January passed. February came. That's when Gregory Chen walked through the front doors. 34, Stanford MBA, private equity background. The kind of man who spoke in metrics and believed disruption was something you did to people, not with them. The first time I met him, he didn't stand up. He gestured for me to sit while he stayed behind his desk, arms folded, eyes sharp. "I've reviewed the licensing arrangement for your system," he said. "Interesting structure." My jaw tightened. It made sense at the time. He replied. "We may need to revisit that." 2 weeks later, he called an all-hands meeting. 47 slides, operational optimization, efficiency realignment, streamlining. Corporate language that always meant the same thing. Cuts, By slide 23, he said it out loud. Our technology infrastructure is overstaffed and underperforming. I stared at the screen, disbelief simmering under my skin. My team was lean, efficient. We'd hit 99.97% uptime for 3 straight months. March 15th, my calendar pinged. Compensation discussion. Conference room B, 10:00 a.m. No agenda, no context. I knew that room. No windows, soundproofed. The firing room. I stood up, smoothed my jacket, and walked down the hall. Whatever was coming next, I could feel it in my bones. Conference room B felt colder than the rest of the building. No windows, thick walls, a long table that always seemed too big for the conversations it hosted. I arrived exactly at 10:00 a.m. Gregory was already there, seated at the head of the table. He didn't stand. Again. To his right sat Amanda Reeves, the new CFO he'd brought with him. Mid-30s, immaculate suit expression, permanently set somewhere between bored and irritated. In the corner was a man I'd never seen before. Expensive watch leather portfolio posture, too relaxed to be anything but legal. Gregory gestured to the chair across from him. Evelyn, have a seat. I sat. We're making some adjustments. He began, his voice smooth in that way that always meant something sharp was coming, as part of our operational optimization initiative. Amanda slid a folder toward me. I opened it. My salary was slashed from $94,000 to $67,800, a 28% cut. My annual bonus gone. Health insurance downgraded to a high deductible plan that would cost me $6,000 out of pocket before coverage even kicked in. Vacation days reduced from 18 to 12. I looked up slowly. This is a mistake. These are market corrections, Amanda said, tone clinical. We've benchmarked comparable roles across the industry. I built the platform this company runs on, I said evenly. Every department, every contract. Gregory smiled. Not warmly, and we appreciate that contribution. But that was years ago. This is about current value. Our current value, I corrected. He leaned forward slightly. Let's be realistic about your role. You're in IT, technical support. Important, sure, but not mission critical. The words landed like a slap. I thought about the nights I'd slept under my desk, the weekends I'd given up, the relationship I'd lost, the money I'd spent out of pocket so the company could thrive. You're telling me the system that generates our revenue isn't mission critical, I asked. It's integrated now, he replied. It runs itself. That was a lie, and he knew it. If I don't sign this, I asked. Gregory nodded toward the man in the corner. Papers slid across the table. Then we'll have to reassess your position here. I glanced down at the documents, my mind racing, not with panic, but with calculation. One clause echoed louder than the rest, the one my lawyer friend had insisted on, the one tied to compensation, maintenance of agreed-upon compensation structure. They were breaching it, right here, right now. Can I have 24 hours to review this, I asked. Gregory's smile vanished. This isn't a negotiation. Amanda checked her watch. I picked up the pen. I signed. When I stood to leave, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from rage, so focused it felt almost calm. As I walked back to my office, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. They had just made the biggest mistake of their careers. I closed my office door and sat at my desk without turning on the monitor. For a long moment, I just stared at my hands. 9 years. That was how long I'd given Apex. 9 years of late nights, emergency calls, canceled plans, and quiet fixes no one ever noticed unless something went wrong. And in less than 30 minutes, Gregory had reduced all of that to a number on a spreadsheet. You're in IT, not mission critical. The words looped in my head like a corrupted audio file. A knock broke the silence. Ron stepped in his face tight with frustration. I heard he said, I fought it. I swear I did. It's fine, I lied. Ron shook his head. It's not. He doesn't understand what you built, or what happens if he keeps pushing, I finished. Ron sighed. He's got the board convinced this is necessary. I know. When Ron left, I waited 10 minutes. Then I pulled out my phone and called Kevin. I need to see you tonight, I said. It's important. He didn't ask questions. Stella's 7. The rest of the day blurred together. I answered tickets on autopilot, smiled when people spoke to me, left the building at exactly 5. Kevin was already at the cafe, laptop open, tie loosened. I told him everything word for word. The pay cut, the dismissal, the room. When I finished, he didn't speak right away. He reached for his coffee, took a sip, then looked up at me with something like awe. Do you still have the licensing agreement? I nodded and pulled it up. He read it once, then again, then smiled. They breached it. The words sent a jolt through me. Completely. Unilaterally changed your compensation, he said. That violates the terms. You can revoke the license immediately. My chest tightened. What happens if I do? Kevin leaned back. Their entire system shuts down. Payroll, contracts, everything. It's legal, clean, defensible. I thought about my team. 400 employees. People who'd done nothing wrong. Then I thought about Gregory's face in that room. How do I do it? I asked. Kevin opened his laptop. We make it airtight. We drafted the revocation notice together. Every clause cited, every breach documented. By 10:37 p.m., it was ready. You built a kill switch, right? He asked. Yes. How fast? Instant. Kevin nodded slowly. Once you send this, there's no going back. I stared at the document. Then I said, send it. And just like that, everything changed. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while the city hummed outside my phone, face down on the nightstand like it might explode if I touched it. Every version of tomorrow played out in my head, me being escorted out by security, my team staring in confusion, Gregory smirking like he'd won. And then there was the other version, the one where everything stopped. Friday morning came anyway. I got to the office at my usual time, 7:45 a.m. The lobby smelled like burnt coffee and fresh ambition, the same as always. People joked by the elevators. Someone complained about a meeting that could have been an email. Normalcy pretending nothing was already unraveling. At 9:17 a.m., my desk phone rang. Evelyn, Gregory's assistant, said tightly, Mr. Chen needs to see you immediately. I walked down the hall with steady steps. His door was open. He was on the phone, pacing, jaw clenched. When he saw me, he hung up and slammed a piece of paper onto his desk. What the hell is this? The revocation notice. It's exactly what it says, I replied. I'm terminating Apex's license to use my software. You can't do that. I can, I said calmly. You breached the agreement when you cut my compensation. His face flushed red. You're going to shut down the entire company over a pay adjustment. I'm enforcing a contract, I said, the same way you enforced yours. He stared at me, searching for hesitation. He didn't find it. We'll sue you into the ground. My lawyers are ready. I left his office before he could say anything else. The rest of the day felt unreal. Meetings continued. Emails went out. Phones rang. Behind closed doors, executives whispered and disappeared into conference rooms. Legal called me 3 times. I forwarded everything to Kevin. At 4:35 p.m., I backed up my personal files. At 4:42, I sent a short, company-wide email. If you need anything from me, please reach out by end of day. Availability may be limited next week. At 4:46, I logged into the back end. The system greeted me like it always had, clean, responsive, obedient. I changed one field. License status terminated. At exactly 4:47 p.m., access was revoked. Across the floor, monitors went dark. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Someone shouted, Is the system down? Another voice. I just lost everything. My phone started ringing. I didn't answer. I packed my bag, walked out of the building, and didn't look back. My phone didn't stop vibrating the entire drive home. I didn't look at it. I already knew who it was. At 5:02 p.m., while I was waiting at a red light 2 blocks from my apartment, my personal phone rang again. This time I answered. Evelyn, what the hell did you just do? Gregory's voice was strained higher than usual, with chaos bleeding through the background, raised voices, ringing phones, someone swearing loudly. I revoked your license, I said. It's in the notice I sent this morning. You can't shut down the entire company like this. I didn't shut down the company, I replied. I enforced a contract. You shut it down when you decided I wasn't worth my compensation. Silence, then muffled shouting. Be reasonable, he said finally. We can work this out. I laughed once, short, unamused. You had reasonable, conference room B. You chose intimidation instead. You're destroying 400 people's livelihoods, he snapped. No, I said. You did that when you cut the pay of the person who owns the infrastructure your entire operation depends on. I hung up. I ordered takeout, sat on my couch, and watched an episode of something mindless while my phone buzzed itself into exhaustion. The real fallout started overnight. By Saturday morning, Kevin called me before I'd finished my coffee. You need to see this. He sent me a link. Apex Solutions stock plunges 34% after complete system failure. The article mentioned halted operations, frozen payroll, missed client deadlines. Analysts used words like catastrophic and unprecedented. Overnight trading had been brutal. By Sunday afternoon, the stock was down 62%. That's when the board reached out. The email was short, formal, careful. We would appreciate the opportunity to discuss a resolution. Kevin grinned when he'd read it. They're ready. We sent our terms Monday morning. $8 million up front, $2 million annually going forward. Full restoration of my compensation with a raise, an ironclad contract. and Gregory's resignation. By Tuesday morning, we were sitting in the executive conference room. The board looked exhausted. Gregory looked like he'd aged 10 years in 4 days. "This is extortion," he said weakly. "No," Kevin replied. "This is licensing." When the vote came, 6 hands went up. Gregory's resignation was effective immediately. I restored system access Wednesday at 10:47 a.m. Monitors flickered back to life. Processes resumed. Relief washed through the building like a physical force. By Thursday, the stock had rebounded 40%. By Friday, business journals were calling it a cautionary tale. And Gregory, he walked out carrying a cardboard box. Wednesday morning, Kevin and I returned to Apex to sign the final contracts. The lobby felt different, tenser, quieter, like a building that had just survived an earthquake and was still afraid to move. People whispered. Phones rang nonstop. Security guards stood straighter than usual. The wire transfer hit at 9:58 a.m. $8 million. Clean, final. At 10:47 a.m., I logged into the system one last time and restored access. Every dashboard came back online. Payroll unfroze. Client portals refreshed. Data that had been sitting in limbo snapped back into place as if nothing had ever happened. Across the floor, I heard relieved laughter, a few cheers that people tried to suppress. By noon, the crisis was officially resolved. By the end of the day, Patricia Hale was announced as interim CEO. Her first act wasn't a press release. It was walking the floors, introducing herself, asking questions, and listening to the answers. When she called me into her office that afternoon, Gregory's motivational posters were already gone. "What happened here should never have happened," she said, "and it won't happen again." She slid my new contract across the desk. Everything we'd agreed to, plus a guaranteed annual review and performance raises. "You don't have to do this," I said. "Yes," she replied calmly, "I do." I signed. Over the next few weeks, Apex stabilized. The stock clawed its way back. Some clients returned, others didn't. But the company survived and learned painfully what it meant to undervalue the person who built its foundation. My team grew. Salaries were adjusted, respect followed. The money sat quietly in investments. I paid off my student loans, moved into a better apartment, didn't change much else. Then unexpectedly, Daniel texted. "I saw the news. Always knew you were capable of incredible things. I'm sorry I didn't understand." I read it once, then deleted it. Some lessons arrived too late to matter. 6 months later, Apex licensed my platform to 3 other companies. $12 million annually. My accountant laughed when he saw the structure. Gregory tried to sue me in October. The case was dismissed in under a month. The judge called it frivolous. Gregory paid my legal fees. The last time I walked through the Apex lobby, someone held the door open for me and said, "Good morning, Evelyn." Not it, not support, not replaceable. Just my name. And for the first time, that was enough.